My name is Welcome Kubeka. I'll be taking you through the session of today, where we'll look on plagiarism and paraphrasing. I would like us to look at this quickly, and let's give ourselves maybe 3 to 5 minutes and try to think about this. Let's assume that you are given this term plagiarism, all right? Here is a term plagiarism. What words or weight or phrase or phrases or concept or term or terms comes to your mind? Here is the word plagiarism. So if you look at this concept or the word plagiarism, what are the words which can come up to your mind? Or a weight, which you can associate it with plagiarism? I think this task is quite understandable from your side. That's my assumption from now. Think about it and indicate maybe 1 or 2 phrases which you can associate with this concept or term plagiarism from your side. We are trying to come with some phrases or terms or words which are aligned to the concept plagiarism. If you see the word plagiarism, as a layman, as just a student, what words or words you can associate plagiarism with? Or phrase or concept? Any concept which you feel that you can associate this term plagiarism with. Give me those concepts or words. It can be one word, all right? So that we'll try to develop our own word cloud around that. All right, thanks, colleagues. And yeah, I can see that we had various and many terms, concepts, and some of them are sentences. And yeah, I really appreciate that. I've picked some of them as much as possible. I won't read all of them, but what I've picked up, it says copy and paste. It's quite interesting. When you look at plagiarism, you think about copy and paste. Dishonestly, it's one of the concepts or one of the words. Someone says using someone's words as your own without referencing. There's someone who says not acknowledging someone's work. Yeah, taking someone's ideas as yours and present them. And that, I think that one is quite, all of them are serious, but taking someone's ideas and present them as your own, it's quite serious, eh? All right. Someone says using author's information without recognition. I like information theft, also unoriginal, stealing people's work and presenting as if are yours, deception, And I think when we look at all of the concepts you have given or the words, it tells us that we have a clue about what plagiarism is all about. Most of you guys, you have a clue. And the challenge is how to avoid it. Why we take it as a serious offense. And given my previous experience, like I always refer to it, the issue of plagiarism, especially some of us when you're doing our undergraduate, it was not, in fact, it was not even given to us and empowered about the concept itself, And I don't know how the lecturers used to go about looking at our work. Maybe they have their own way of doing things. But now, plagiarism is a serious offense. If you plagiarize your academic record, it's also a serious offense. And I think there's a sentence around that. But let's quickly look at the next slide. Then hopefully when we come towards the end of the presentation, we'll see if some of the concepts which we have identified here or words that are more aligned to what I do have at the end. All right, but I'm not saying yours are not correct. You know, if we have enough time, we could even use a certain software which we can try to develop the word cloud around it, and you can populate it. But now we don't have that time. But I didn't want to go straight to the outcomes because sometimes we jump to the outcomes. But here are the outcomes. I hope by the end of this session we'll be able to understand plagiarism, you know, and already we have an idea with the weights we have given around plagiarism. And also we need to know and understand what makes our student to plagiarize. You can put the policy of plagiarism in the students' assignments or tasks, but others are going to the extent of plagiarizing. And also, you should be aware of the consequences of plagiarism. All right? What are the results if you plagiarize? What steps will be taken against you if you plagiarize? And the other one, which I'm going to focus on it today, I want to focus on paraphrasing. Because you can't talk about plagiarism without paraphrasing. We say to you, you don't need to plagiarize, so we need to give you empowerment on how to paraphrase. Because I know one of the colleagues indicated in the word cloud to say copy and paste is the easiest way. We understand that. But it has a serious consequence. We'll talk about that also. Maybe when you look in regards to academic writing, basically it is clear that at this level we are, academic writing is crucial, especially at higher institution. All right, whether you are doing your first degree, your honors, your masters, academic writing is very crucial because there is a difference of writings. You know, there are writings you do them maybe for leisure and so on, but academic writing, it has its own principles and processes and procedures. So the other thing about academic writing is that it assists us, you know, in shaping and building and sharing knowledge. And we are able to produce knowledge. There's no way we can produce knowledge if we don't write. There's no way as students we can contribute to the science, all right, if we don't write. We need to write. And when we write, there are some of the processes we need to follow, like I've indicated, especially academic writing. We've seen that most of the universities nowadays, you know, most of them, almost all of them, by the way, they've tried to make sure that in their policies, they incorporated the issue of plagiarism. Why? Because plagiarism is an ethical issue. If you plagiarize, it's a sin. It is a theft. So that's why we say it is an ethical issue. Hence, some colleges or some faculties, they also incorporate the issue of plagiarism in their students' assessments. But there is a simple aspect which White indicates in regards to plagiarism. White says plagiarism is a very serious offense and must be avoided at all times. If you are not sure whether to cite or not to cite, rather cite than be accused of stealing other people's intellectual property. Basically, what he says, it's better to cite the source you have used. And sometimes you cite it wrongly, but it's there. And I always have an argument, a very serious argument with some of my colleagues. People think that if you have cited a source in your text, that's the end. And remember that when you cited the source in your text, it's not the end. You still need to give a reference around that, because the reference, it gives more details. Let's quickly look at on how some of people define or describe plagiarism. The dictionary.com says plagiarism is an act or instance of using or closely imitating the language and thoughts of another author without authorization and representation of that author's work as one's own, as by not crediting the original author. Basically, is that there's nothing wrong to use other people's thoughts, but you must give credit. Give credit. And I think most of us, we are aware about this concept of plagiarism. If, for example, I have an idea now, I share with 5 of my maybe friends or colleagues, and one of my friends listen to my idea and take it forward. And when I discovered that basically it was my idea, I can say the person has plagiarized. But the problem is, yes, the idea came from me when we seated there as 5 of us, and someone decided to pursue the idea. Is this plagiarism? For my side, I would say it is not, because I have this greatest idea, this innovation, this creative, or this thought, but I didn't protect it. The most important is that if you have that thought, creativity, idea, or innovation, protect it at the initial stage, so that if people they start to use it, already you have protected it. But I think that's a discussion for another day. Plagiarism is the practice of using or copying someone else's ideas or work and pretending that are yours. I think one of the students have indicated that when you're trying to develop the word cloud. You use someone's ideas and you pretend as if are yours. Why? And some of you will see when you look at paraphrasing, and when you look at using some of the software like Turnitin briefly, to say some of those software, they pick up terminology or concept or terms which have been used by another author. And if you are not able to paraphrase well, you end up having a high level of plagiarism in your document. But what's important is that if you feel that, for argument's sake, I'll touch on that later, it's quite a bit difficult and challenging from you to not paraphrase. Why don't you give direct quotation? Why? It's also allowed, so that you safeguard yourself. But we don't expect your task or your assignment to have direct quotations, throughout. Like sometimes we find the students, what they normally do, they always like to put bulleted points. Why? There are reasons for that. But I want us also to look at the different forms in which plagiarism can take. All right? There are many of them, but I've picked up this few. The first one say word for word copying. paraphrasing, not citing your source, submitting someone's work under your name, pretending it is yours, submitting the work produced by you and others as your own individual work. Let's look at the first one. When you paraphrase using word-for-word copying, in other words, it's where you copy another person's work without providing a proper source. In that way, you are not even creative. And I want to share with you guys to say, when you write whatever task, especially for academic purposes, you need to tell yourself to say, from onset, I'm going to paraphrase. If you can tell yourself that, you won't be catch up by plagiarism. Because your mindset, you have put it in that stage. You say, I'm going to paraphrase. You know, it's easy to come with a plagiarism level of 0. It's easy. As long as you say to yourself, I'm going to follow certain processes so that I make sure that I don't plagiarize or paraphrase. The other one is paraphrasing, where you need to acknowledge other people's ideas or work. Acknowledge, like I've said. And as you'll see in when we go through the presentation, we'll be touching on this on that terminology in detail as much as possible. But acknowledging, there's nothing wrong with that. Not citing your source. It's another form that plagiarism can take. We have all these sources, but you don't cite them properly. And we know that what happens most of the time, if you are writing academic work, you lose some of the sources away. But how to safeguard some of those sources so that you don't lose them? You know, some students who are already on the advanced stage of their academic writing, they will tell you that I had so much sources. And now when I'm trying to put my reference list, I can't find the sources. And it becomes a lot of a challenge. You need to make sure that you also cite the work we have put in the text. Cite it properly, like I've said. And it's quite interesting also to ensure that to avoid plagiarism, when submitting someone's work under your name, pretending it is yours, it is plagiarism. If the work it is not yours, it is not yours. Give credit. People, they spend so much time, resources on working on this knowledge. So they expect it to be cited. And sometimes I remember in one of the presentation I had in regard to plagiarism, one student asked that if your work has been cited, do you get any remuneration? I don't know. You know, it depends from the quotas. You know, there are others who get some remuneration, but unfortunately from my side, I haven't received any remuneration. But what I like is that when I go to a certain platform, it tells you that the following students have cited your work and they are from different countries and so on. So it means you add value. That's what we want in academic. Submitting the work produced by you and the other colleagues or authors as if it's your own work. It's a fraud. It's a theft. You need to acknowledge the contributors. Acknowledge them. You can be 8, you can be 10, but they need to be acknowledged because it's not your own work. When they also do and submit the work which you did with them, they will acknowledge you also. That's why sometimes we have the word when you do reference, and mostly in text, by them, in text citing, we have the word et al. It tells you that this author has other contributors within the content which has been cited. So you need also to acknowledge them. But as much as we can grumble and say whatever we want to say in regards to plagiarism, there are reasons why students plagiarize. And I'm telling you, if I say students, I'm not referring to you as students alone. Whoever is involved in academic writing, there are reasons why they plagiarize. And I like it the way it's been done now, especially when you submit your assignment and so on. They will indicate to you that you need to subject it to turn it in. The same thing when you submit your research proposal. Other colleges, they say they need to see the turn it in results. And the challenge becomes now, if the level of plagiarism is high in the document, how do you reduce it? Maybe we'll talk about that, I don't know. But what are some of the reasons? Well, some of them, colleagues, I think they are very common. You know, I'm not trying to say these are the only reasons. All right, there are various reasons. There are various reasons. All right, sometimes when we find that maybe the assignment task is not clear. All right, but one of the reasons is a matter of procrastination, you know, whereby sometimes you delay the task, you know. And I'm telling you, the delaying of the task is not happening only when you submit your assignment and all of those things. No. Sometimes students are submitting their research proposal, which normally they submit them around, for the masters is around October, November, if I'm not mistaken. A person knows by the beginning of the year to say, I need to work on this research proposal. Then a person decides to work it at the last minute. Then a person, due to procrastination, a person end up plagiarizing. In other words, we need to avoid to procrastinate as much as possible. Then, like another colleague have indicated, when we're trying to develop the word cloud. What's the next step now? You have procrastinated, you have done some procrastination, you have delayed a task. What's the easiest way? Copy and paste. Copy and paste. Of which also a serious offense. So procrastination, it always leads to some of us resorting to copy and paste. I think the next one is a matter of poor time management skills. Sometimes we don't manage our time well, all right? We don't develop a plan, you know, a proper plan to say, I'm having this assignment, and these are the aspects which I need to work on this assignment so that I'll be able to submit it on time. And when I submit it on time, I can even give myself a day or two to look on how much have I paraphrased so that I avoid plagiarism. Maybe it's a lack of punishment from the college or from the faculty or from the institution itself. A person will say, I know that I won't be punished if I plagiarize, so I rather plagiarize. Because there is no punishment in regards to plagiarism in my institution. And colleagues, I'm telling you, I attended a certain short-learning program in the first semester. We had some colleagues from other countries, especially here in Africa. They have to share serious stuff regarded to plagiarism. You know, if someone will say in our institution, we don't penalize students if they plagiarize. It's a serious thing. And the person was not even lying, because we have to share our experiences from our different institutions. But if you go to other institutions, I've seen When you go to their website and check, and when you are in there, you'll see plagiarism being put up front. And also there is also a number where you can dial, you know, and so on. But basically what I'm trying to say is that if it's not been punished, definitely I'll plagiarize. I think the other one, colleagues, please don't kill me on this one. I'm not putting laziness, you know, as a the, but sometimes I feel it's a matter of not giving it all, you know, not giving it all. And not giving it all, sometimes it has some of the aspects which have led to that, all right? Maybe it's about to say, now I need to meet the due date. So let me just put the content as quickly as possible and use the easiest way. But the next one, which I think is also crucial, it's a matter of lack of confidence. You know, sometimes if we say to our students, don't plagiarize, it's easy to say that, it's easy. But my question is, have we empowered them on how to ensure that they don't plagiarize? Did you give them some workshops? Or did you sit with them and give them some exercise? Because if we don't do that, students, they won't have confidence. We have some students in other learning institutions. They used to submit their task before they come to university sometimes by copy and paste, and they get better marks and even the highest grades. Now we say, no, it's not allowed. My question is, what training or empowerment have we given our students? So we need to make sure that we take them through the process. We should not just assume, because if we assume, that's why some of our students they end up plagiarize, because they don't have confidence in paraphrasing. So the other one, which I think is also important, inadequate research skills. How do you ensure that if you do research, you ensure that you have enough skills to do that? Because sometimes research, you think it's about taking information there and combining it and coming with the document. Especially in an area, not in all of the areas of your research component, but basically on literature.
My honest truth, I came with what Dr. P.
All right. What I was trying to say is that sometimes we think that when you do research, you just take material there and there and there and combine it, especially when you write your literature. Yes, we allow that at a certain level, but now we are moving to say, even that part, it needs to be make sure that you paraphrase it correctly. Because why we are emphasizing that? We want you as a student to add your voice. We are getting now tired when the works always, the whole 5 paragraphs, every sentence in the paragraph start with according to so-so, according to so-so. You know, it become more monotonous. So you want you guys to add your voice. Add your voice. That's what we call academic writing or learning. You need to add your voice. But sometimes you may find that it's a matter of pressure from external forces that could also contribute to students to plagiarize. Maybe due to scholarship committees. You know, sometimes we push a certain angle. And when we push this certain angle towards our students, We don't give our students a chance to be innovative and creative and also add their own voices. What I'm referring to, you may find that there is a certain theory in a certain college or department or faculty which has been pushed to say, whoever I'm supervising as in my honors or masters, I want this theoretical framework to be there. So it limits our students. It does. Let them come with their own. And sometimes we learn from this, from the students. You know, the last time, I think, before COVID, I've learned a very interesting theory from one of my students. And they call it a theory of rhizome. I have to learn it from my students. But the other thing is that sometimes it's a matter of ensuring that you get the highest grades. You know, that's why sometimes we pressurize our students, because everyone wants their students to do well. But the last one is that students sometimes plagiarize because they think that they won't be caught. And colleagues, I want to tell you, yes, maybe now, some of these things, they take time. Maybe in future we'll be caught. And it's going to be painful. So rather do it the correct way from the onset. And sometimes they think, students, that because they won't be caught, they're able to get better marks and so on and succeed, forgetting that we also have some of the way of ensuring that students don't plagiarize. For example, we have different softwares. If, for example, you don't subject, the requirement was not for you to subject your task or your assignment into Turnitin, I can subject it to it and be able to pick up all of this. Because if I take your assignment as a lecturer and submit it to Turnitin won't decline it and say, no, it's not your work, it's someone's work. No, it's going to just go through a process and give me results. So there are software. It is quite interesting to know if, as much as we indicate to say, why are students plagiarizing their work, why it is wrong to plagiarize. Because it's a form of theft. You're stealing. You know, you're stealing other people's ideas. And it's wrong. We all know the consequences of stealing. In other words, there are people who have put some thoughts about their work or in this work, and we are stealing it. They also have some creativity, maybe, or they were innovative. And that's why we refer to this as a criminal offense. You must give credit where it's due. That's it. That's all. We know that the other thing which is wrong about plagiarism is that it always promotes dishonesty. And I think this concept also came out in our weight cloud. Dishonesty. All right? It promotes some of dishonesty even amongst our students themselves. And colleagues, sometimes these things, when they come, we take them for granted. I think most of us, we are familiar, especially last year during COVID and so on, when we started to do our online assessment. Some lecturers, they will tell you that they were sitting with copy and pasted content from our students. But let me be honest, sometimes we complain as lecturers, but when you look at the actual assessment task, if it doesn't give a student to be creative and innovative and use his or her own weights, you know, the way you design the task itself, it limits the students. The students end up resorting to the textbook. But if the assessment it gives the students an opportunity also to infuse their own words and understanding. That limits copy and pasting. So it's one of the two ways, basically. But it also, like I've said, it does promote dishonesty amongst the students themselves. And we know that if we are dishonest, that could lead to a serious consequences. One, other institutions, they take plagiarism so serious that they can even suspend the students who have plagiarized their work. And the other thing about this, honestly, it could also lead to stress to some of the students, even yourself, the person who was dishonest. And also maybe can lead to anxiety. And sometimes it leads to the serious consequence like low self-esteem. Imagine if it's been picked up, even your peers, to say you have plagiarized. You have plagiarized your work. I'll give a simple example. I don't want to go to be in trouble. I think it was last year or early year before last year, but I think it was last year, if I'm not mistaken. There was one of the area in South Africa whereby they say people have plagiarized a certain document and the way it is, and people are paid for that. There were consultants who were asked to develop that document, and people have plagiarized. And it came late. I don't know after how many years, but it was picked up to say this was plagiarized. And also the other thing which is wrong about plagiarism is that the hard work of others are being denigrated. In other words, the hard work which other people are putting in this academic writing are not considered. We don't hold them at high esteem. As much as they've put whatever efforts they've put in this work, we don't consider their hard work. And it's wrong. Let's look at what are the consequences of plagiarism quickly. One, it says it destroys your personal and academic reputation, colleagues. It can also destroy your career because you can be suspended. You can be expelled because you have plagiarized. Imagine about your reputation. Like we have said, it is a punishable offense. You can be fined, you can be penalized, and so on. It depends on the policy of the institution. And the other thing about the consequences of plagiarism is that if, for example, you have been honored by an institution and be given maybe a certain honor, then we refer to you as a doctor and so on. Imagine along the way, you do something which is unethical and you have been stripped that ownership. How do you feel? You feel bad because it has a serious reputation, not to you alone. Think about your immediate family members. Think about a situation whereby you have been referred to a title which you don't deserve. Simple, a title. I've seen with myself. Other people, they become more excited when they respond to me sometimes, and they refer to me as Prof. Kubeka. I immediately correct that. I don't have a professorship. I'm still a doctor. Because if you leave it and you enjoy it, by the time it's been picked up later, it's going to affect your reputation. We had such incidents in South Africa in the past. I won't mention names. But if you know that you don't have a certain title and people are referring to you about that title, please correct it immediately. If you know that as a student, these are the symbols or grades which you got in your high school or in your matric. Live with them. If you know that as a student, you went to up to a certain extent in your undergraduate, and due to some reasons beyond your control, you are not able to complete the qualification. Put it clearly to say the qualification is not completed. Here are the modules which I've completed. That's it. Don't enjoy a qualification which you know that you didn't complete. Because when that things come out, it's going to be bad to your side. Right. Maybe we need to move quickly now. But there are ways to avoid plagiarism. I think some of the ways we have spoken about them. You need to cite your sources as you have used them in your text. Cite them. It could be a matter of saying you didn't cite them correctly. You know, especially sometimes you find that students are using the word et al incorrectly. But at least there is something I've done to say, no, here is the source I've used. The other way is that if you feel that you can't do anything with this content, all right, you can give a direct quotation. Give a direct quotation. Give the source, the text, the inside text, according to so and so, then provide quotation marks and give the source the way it is. You're on a safe side. You're on a safe side around it. And try to present the content or the text using your own words or ideas as much as possible. Yes, use the author's sources, but infuse it with your own ideas and understanding. And I'm telling you, you'll enjoy that. It's very enjoyable, but it's taxing. But you enjoy the process. You need also to use plagiarism checkers. You know, use those softwares. You don't even have to be told sometimes. Just use them. And it becomes a norm. Because they'll be able to assist you to check the level of plagiarism of your submitted task. Maybe to try to engage a little bit, I think I've been talking. I want us to look at this exercise. I've given it 5 minutes, and I think 5 minutes is too much. So I'll say, let's give it, 5 minutes. Then the next 3 to 5 minutes, a little bit of report or feedback so that we see on how we assist each other. Let's quickly look at this exercise. It says, let's assume that when preparing for your assignment, term assignment, you read a book review by this author, Lisa R. Staffen, that was published in Contemporary Sociology during March 1996. The volume is 25. The number is 2. The pages are 154 to 156. All right. And what I'm trying to say is that you are preparing for your term assignment and you read this from this author. This author's review starts as follows. It has become fashionable to reject the notion of absolute objectivity on the grounds that objectivity is simply unattainable or even if attainable, is undesirable. Right? So when you read this author's work, the first review you see are those words. Let's say now you liked this review by the author and also think that your lecturer will be fascinated and like it too. So you decide to start the introduction of your assignment with this opening introductory sentence. All right? Remember that the author's review, it spoke about those aspects which are mentioned up in above. So in your assignment now, the first introductory sentence, you start your assignment with this sentence. I feel it has become fashionable to reject the notion of absolute objectivity on the grounds that objectivity is simply unattainable. In other words, that's how you start your introductory sentence after you have read the review of this author, and you submit your work now, and hoping that your lecturer will like it. Maybe your lecturer will see some creativity around that. Number one, tell me or tell us, what do you think about the opening introductory sentence? What's your thinking about it? Did the student plagiarize or not? Two, do starting the opening introductory sentence with I feel it has become fashionable and so on and so on makes this not a plagiarized sentence. Three, how best could a student include the review of Stephen in his or her assignment as an introductory sentence? So there are three things, colleagues. Let's look at them quickly and try to get some response around that. I think I've expanded in explaining the exercise itself. It's almost 10:30. By 10:35, we'll start to get some feedback. You can raise your hand, you can go to the chat, you can decide to answer any of the three questions. It's fine because of time, but we expect to see some answers around those questions. I think it's clear. Can we start now? I can see that on the chart, it says there, please also cover examples on direct quoting, right? Maybe I'll touch on that quickly. The other one, based on the task, it says, please colleagues, don't feel offended if I don't call your names. I'm trying just to be as quick as possible. I acknowledge your names. The writer cannot write, I feel. What interesting, eh? When someone else has already stated such a fact. The correct citation should reference both the original researchers and the source from which is cited. That is original reference, date cited in, author of reference to work dates. All right, getting a bit confused there, but I know what you are trying to say. To say you cannot start by writing the word I because it's someone's work. So you need to cite the persons who have written that text. That's what I understand with that. Yes, the student plagiarized. The student is stealing the author's thoughts and making it their own. Agree. The student plagiarized. They didn't cite the author. Yes, I agree. Furthermore, where the exact wording is paraphrased, quotes should be used, and the citation should contain the page numbers. I think basically here, you are saying that maybe the student could have provided a direct quoting, you know, whereby the author's surname will be used and also the page numbers. And remember that in regards to the page numbers, it also depends on the reference method you are using or style, all right? Others, they ask for page numbers if you use direct quotation, others they don't. But let's assume the one you are referring to, it asks for the page number, and it's a correct way to say any direct quote, you need also to provide the page numbers. I think that could be answered better when there are some of the workshop on how to write a reference list using different reference styles. Some of you guys will need to attend those workshops. You'll be able to get more around that. Another colleague says yes, all right, yes to number one, which I assume that you are saying to me, the student have plagiarized. No, it is someone's published work. So the student can start with the word I feel and also put the author's work the way it appears in the cited textbook or source. The student could highlight agreement with the statement, from then reference the author's work. I like this third point, because the third point says, how best could the student include the review of this author in his or her assignment? So here is another way of ensuring that the student rewrites this part of the text in a correct way. And I agree with that. Let me quickly move a little bit fast. They use the author's ideas without acknowledging. Yes, we agree with that one. Number one, student did plagiarize because they did not cite the work and therefore no acknowledgement of source. Yes, we have agreed with that one also. Yes, the student have plagiarized. No, it's still plagiarism. The student should have paraphrased the sentence and said, yes, I agree with that one. I think the last student says it is plagiarism. Thanks for your contribution, guys, and I'm in agreement with you. But I would like to have hear more about answering the third part, you know, or the third question, to say how best could the student include the review of staffing in his or her team assignment, you know. And it was going to be easy to get that on the chart. And I can see one student gave us the way of ensuring that the student do submit the work of staffing in a correct way in his or introductory section. But I think the best way is just to ensure that you cite the author correctly, and also maybe try to paraphrase as much as possible. Or if you decide to use the right quotation, you do that. Those are the two ways you can try to ensure that you submit a better work. But thanks for the contribution. Maybe let's try and move, if there are no any further contribution, let's move to the next slide. I think in the next slide, I'm giving my own. Well, you guys could have put it in a different way. Maybe the student could have started the sentence as follows. All right. You can have your own idea, by the way, guys. That's what I was thinking from my side. By providing the source and also write the introductory sentence as follows. Staffing, according to the year and the page number, indicates that it has become fashionable to reject the notion of absolute objectivity on the grounds that objectivity is simply unattainable, or even if attainable, is undesirable. What I've done there, I've tried to focus more on direct quotation as much as possible. Even though there are some words I've included one or two, but I've taken the author's words the way they are. And I've used direct quotation according to a certain reference style. All right? So you can do it in your own way, the way you want to do it. But maybe let's look at paraphrase now quickly. And I'm hoping that we'll look at that in detail. What is paraphrase? Maybe we can break it. I can see that Mr. Lisiba, the video is on. All right. If you are comfortable with data, it's fine. But let us paraphrase and see and break the word paraphrase. I'll take the first four words, which is para. All right. It says the P, it stands, we can say, put the text in your own words. Then if you have put your text in your own words, avoid copying the text. I know it's a bit confusing, but we emphasize you guys to avoid to copy the text the way it is. Yes, there are some concepts of phrases which you'll feel that you want to use them in the text. It's allowed. Rearrange similar text. In other words, the same text which you are trying to paraphrase it, arrange it so that it suits you. And ask yourself after that if all important points have been included. Well, those are not steps, but it's some ways on how to think about the phrase paraphrase and taking the first four letters. Let's quickly look at the next slide. What is paraphrasing? All right, the University of South Australia sees paraphrasing as follows. They say paraphrasing is presenting ideas and information in your own words and acknowledge where they come from. Remember that when you paraphrase, as much as you'll be putting your own words and understanding, there are other people's words or phrases which you are going to use. So that's why it says you acknowledge where those phrases are coming from. Now, if you have paraphrased so well in this sentence or in this paragraph, after some time, when you are also cited, that's why we always have this to say, when they cite you, they will say, according to so and so, in this someone's source, indicated this and that and that. Because now, remember the source, which you have paraphrased now, you have also added your own voice. So when it's been cited, also, you are going to be indicated. I think it's a bit technical. Let's leave it for that. Like I've said, if you attend some of the workshop around referencing and so on, you'll be able to get it more easier in that way. But the further says, by using your own words, you demonstrate the understanding and your ability to convey this information. There's no way you can see students if they understand, if they don't infuse their own words. They need to infuse their own words. Then we see that students understand. But there are some steps or guidelines for paraphrasing. Colleagues, there's a lot of information around this, honestly, all right? Various authors, they will tell you about various guidelines where they provide various steps. It's not one glove fits all right? But I came up with these ones in regards to this presentation. These are the steps which we can follow or guidelines which we can follow when we paraphrase with the following steps. I know sometimes when you read a text once, you don't understand it. Then you have to read it as many times as you can so that you understand actually what the text is all about. If I can go to the exercise we have done, I think some of us, maybe we didn't understand it. But if you're going to read it for the second time and the third time, you get a better understanding around that extract from white, which we have said in the last exercise. So also in regard to paraphrasing, follow this step. Read the original text as many times as you can so that you get a better understanding around it. And maybe before I can talk about these guidelines for paraphrasing, I need to give you a very simple way, you know. Maybe you have your own way, but here is the simplest way. Let's say, for example, you are dealing with a certain section in your research. Let's say you are dealing with literature section. You have your topic, your title, and so on. And now you want to source various authors around your literature. And maybe let's say you have put your literature in form of subsections. Maybe one of the sections, maybe it's about discipline. So what you do, you go online maybe, or you go to the library. And when you go online, I always like Google Scholar. Then I go to Google Scholar. Then I type articles on discipline. Then I can even frame them to say maybe international or South African, and also provide. All right, basically what I was trying to say is that when you want to source those articles, I like to go to Google Scholar, then I say articles on discipline, then I can even try to frame it maybe to South Africa, and I can even provide the year so that I don't get all source. Then if all of them, they come out on my screen, what I'll do, let's say 5 of them, then now I want to make sure that I get literature around that which talks about discipline. I'll quickly go to the abstract and read a little bit. If I don't get what I want, then I'll quickly go to the article, maybe the literature part of it. If I feel this one, I can use it, then I download it and save it and so on. Then after I've done that, maybe I can open a folder for that to say, this is literature around discipline. Then I have 5 articles there. Then I'll start to read each one according to the information which I need. And I'll start also to do a little bit of paraphrasing according to the information which I'm going to use. So the best way is that you need also to frame your search, you know. You can't search everything. Frame it according to your own requirement. But reading the text or the original text, read it more than once. All right, and as you are reading it, you can also note and write down the key concept of the phrases. And that's what sometimes we refer to it as annotation, by the way. All right, here is a text. You can do it even online, by the way. All right, you don't need to do it manually. Do it online. Then from there, identify the important concept or terms. All right, then you can highlight them and so on. Then after you have done that, you need to make sure that now the original text, you put it away. And after that, you compare your paraphrase text with the original text. In other words, after you have done the notes or the points which you feel they are important in this text, start to paraphrase. And when you after you've done your paraphrasing, you can also go back and compare to say, all right, in my paraphrase text and my original text, how much did I try to ensure that I paraphrase the text itself? It takes a little bit of time, but at the same time, it safeguards you some of the disappointment at the end. And also you need to cite the source, by the way. All right. At the same time, even though you have paraphrased the text, remember that there are some phrases or concepts from which you have borrowed from other people in that text. So you need to cite those people also. like we have spoken about. I've just put this, colleagues, and I'm not sure if I'll able to have time to discuss this, but think about this. The biggest challenge is how to reduce the high level of plagiarism in your document. That's the biggest challenge. You're sitting with almost 70%. How to reduce it? How can you reduce it as a student? Where do you start? And it does frustrate, by the way. Then what you need to do, you go into the document itself, and normally the report, it's normally be shown in different colors. Then when you go to the source, you see those colors, and you start to read what you have submitted and see how much your own words have you infused there. And obvious, it means if the level is high, you didn't put so much of your understanding. So you need to start again and redo it. Redo that paragraph. That's the only way to reduce this level. That's the only way. Imagine, colleagues, I'm just giving a simple example. Here you are a student. Let's say you are doing a master's. You submit your document, everything is fine. Then your supervisor says, now, this is your final submission. Take this final submission of yours and subject it to Turnitin. I want to see the level of plagiarism. Then submit it quickly, and you're so excited. Then after that, the report comes, forward it to your supervisor. And you see all the document is colorful, and the level is very high. Imagine you're going to start from scratch to correct that. But those are the things which we are saying we need to avoid them as much as possible, right? And it's avoidable, by the way. I think most of us, we know that there are a lot of softwares which can be used to detect plagiarism. There are a lot. But we have seen that most of the institutions nowadays, they use Turnitin. I don't know why, but most of the institutions, they use that one. All right? But at the same time, we need to understand the importance of the plagiarism detection softwares. Why are so important? They can assist us in checking and also to prevent plagiarism. That's why they're important. They can also assist the student to check their citation mistakes. And also maybe there is inappropriate copying, taking other people's ways, information the way they are. It assists us around that. And also these softwares, they do assist us because they are able to take us to multi-database sources. They don't take you to one source, because when they pick something as a source, it will tell you that this information have been cited by so and so and so and so and so and so. So it gives you a huge database. And maybe it could be a sort of database in regards to articles or books and so on, or manuscript and so on. So it broadens the scopes. So it assists us a lot. Like I've said, the commonly used one is the Turnitin. Maybe let's quickly look at this simple exercise. This one will give it 3 minutes and 2 minutes for reporting. I've put 2 original texts there. And for me, they are very simple and easy to be understood, right? You can choose which one you want to focus on. The first one, which takes one, it says the economy in South Africa is thriving because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The second text says, on one hand, Peter is a total user. On the other hand, Peter is an adorable father. All right. Maybe look at the two texts and choose which one you want to focus on and try to paraphrase any of these texts in one or two sentences. Please, colleagues, I didn't put the authors there. There are no authors. It's just a text, which I think that you can start to look at it on how to paraphrase it. Choose whatever text you want to choose and paraphrase in one or two sentences. And I think the chat will assist us more. And those who still want to raise up their hands, they can also do that. One of the students says, in one of the modules, we were discouraged to use direct quotation and regarded that as plagiarism. Now, I'm not sure about that one, because if we have the word direct quotation, I think we need to use it. But if the lecturers want it their own way in their modules, I can't comment further around that. Yes, someone says true, there is inconsistency in this. I think that those are modules. Both use Harvard, but the markers make different comments on how we can code. Yeah, colleagues, it's more deep to me now, this one's. But someone says it is a plagiarism, I think referring to the exercise. One of the contributing factors is the instructions that will be provided when told not to write like you are writing a magazine. I like that one also. This is confidence killer. All right, but let's quickly go to the task now. Colleagues, did you manage to try to paraphrase?
I'm good. I share a screen. I paraphrased the first sentence. I said, South African economy is thriving due to the pandemic of COVID-19.
All right, quite interesting. Yeah, it's quite interesting. You have added some. I can't even go to my screen now, but I see that you've added some of the words. You can agree with that. Thanks, Mpo, for sharing. All right, other students have shared, someone have shared on the chat says, Peter is lovable father, but also a user. All right. Now, guys, I'm not sure about the word total user, where they get it from, honestly. But yeah, if you paraphrase, it can come in that way. All right. Let us take it on that context to say we are trying to paraphrase, you know, and let us not focus more on the meaning. All right. The other one says then, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the South African economy is tribal. All right, I think there's a misspelling there. But thanks for sharing that. Murungwa, quickly. All right.
I just wanted to say, due to COVID-19 pandemic, the economy of South Africa is thriving.
Yeah, interesting.
Thank you.
I think we have played with the words around there, and I can see that most students, they were, most of you guys, you didn't want to elaborate further and infuse your own words there and there, but it's fine. Maybe let's move and see how far we can go with this, but thanks for taking part. I'm not going to go to this one, but this is how I could see it from my side, you know, it's quite interesting. You give a task, then you give your own understanding. But I could look at the first one and say the COVID-19 pandemic have caused the economy of South Africa to crumble, to stumble, or to collapse. So I've tried to add some of the new terms around that, all right? Instead of putting the terms the way they are in the original text. There's nothing wrong with that, because I didn't limit you in regards to how many words you're supposed to put when you paraphrase. So you could have expanded, all right? But the other one says, Peter is such an adorable father, whereas he does not seem to be doing well in other aspects of his life. Well, I've just played with the words there and there, you know, just not to pick some of the words which are coming from the original text and infuse my own words, but also try to stick on the meaning. All right, maybe we need to look at this one. I think this exercise also, we are not going to give it so much time which it deserves, because I wanted by 15:15 so that we round off, so that if the people have questions, they can ask questions. But it's one of the interesting exercise, honestly. You know, I didn't know, you know, after I've put up this exercise, to say a baby kangaroo is being called a joy, you know. And if you look at it, it tells you that the newborns they weigh so much. And after their birth, the joy crawls into their mother's pouch, where it will nest and continue to grow and develop. But when you look at the other type of the kangaroos, they call them the red kangaroo joys, do not leave the pouch for good until they are more than 8 months old. So it's quite interesting on how some of these animals, they take care of their babies or their newly borns, like we also human being does. But it's quite interesting exercise, colleagues. If you have time, can you just go through it? Well, I've tried to paraphrase there. If you can look at, actually, it's almost more than a paragraph, but I've tried to paraphrase it in few sentences according to my own understanding. From your side, it can take a bit longer, but try to work on that exercise also. I want us to go to this and see, here is the word cloud. Hopefully some of the terms which we came with, or words, when we're trying to formulate our own word clouds, those words are there, all right? Prevent, imitation, and there are many of them. Protection, you can name them. Fraud, I think fraud is coming. Criminal, it's also one of those words. So I think we have done so well in regards to the word club also, when you try to formulate it. But before I can come to almost the end of my presentation, colleagues, I'd like to thank you to participate in this session. Can I give you now any opportunity to share what you want to share with us in this workshop? Your questions, your contribution, what you think about what we have shared. And I know that it's of limited. You know, some of the things, when you do them like this, yes, you get empowered there and there. But when you get the actual writing, it's where you get the in-depth of it. But let's give you guys this opportunity to share with us. It's quite interesting where a colleague says, what about self-plagiarism? How am I being dishonest by using my own words or my own ideas, sorry? Basically, what you are trying to say to me, if I understand it better, you are saying to me, is it wrong or right to cite myself? And I think personally, we always say, there's nothing wrong to cite yourself. There's nothing wrong. If you feel like to cite yourself in a form of maybe direct quotation, it's fine. If you feel like citing the work you have done yourself and paraphrase it, it's also fine. But you must be careful. you cannot oversight yourself in a document. You must be careful about that. Don't oversight yourself in a document. Maybe once or twice. I've seen with myself in some of the presentation. I've cited myself. Guys, if I don't cite myself, who's going to cite me? I need to promote my work, by the way. You have to promote your own work. Nowadays, colleagues, honestly, everyone needs to promote his or her own work. That's why if you have published something, you are the one supposed to put it there. All right? But according to the guidelines of the publishers, by the way. Like, I think there's nothing wrong around that, but don't overdo it. Otherwise, the document, it becomes monotonous. Put one or two, then stop. And get other authors. I think I've tried to answer it in the simplest way. Someone says, in scientific and mathematical research, I found that when using theorems and definition, my Turnitin score are very high. How do we get around this? Another technical question? Maybe liaise with your lecturers there, because it's not my field, especially science and mathematical research. But yeah, try to get assistance from your immediate lecturers if possible, guys. I'm not avoiding the questions, but some of your chart questions are more technical from my space. Well, there are a lot of them in regards to the plagiarism checkers. You can go online, and some of them are free. You can use them. There are a lot of them. You can Google them, honestly. All right, there are a lot of them. But basically, the one we like the most is Turnitin. I don't know why. I also enjoy it. But if you want to use others, you can also go online and check some of those. Some of them are free. Some of them, I think you have to pay. All right, someone says, Dr. Kubeka, I'm laughing at myself because I have acquired a new phrase in my vocabulary today. Wait cloud. Oh, thanks for that. I have used it quite frequently, but did not know this other name. All right, thank you. And if my work is not published and using work from a previous assignment, how do I cite my work? I don't get that one. You say if your work is not published and using work from a previous assignment, why do you have to use the work from a previous assignment, by the way? Because the assignments, they are, my understanding is that they are not the same. How do I cite my work?
Hi, Doctor. So what I'm asking is, for instance, I'm on honest level, and they sometimes tell us we shouldn't self-plagiarize, because I think with us that are not really experienced with research, we have the tendency, well, myself, I have the tendency of using work from other assignments that are quite similar to the assignment at hand. And you'd find that a lot of the work in the other assignment I can use in the previous assignment, I mean, in the same assignment that I'm dealing with now. So how do I ensure that I don't self-plagiarize whilst I'm using similar ideas from a previous assignment?
It's a bit technical, because when I was saying that you can cite yourself, I'm preferably referring to if you have a published work, all right? That's where I think you can do it better, in your published work. But
yes, yes, hence I sent us a follow-up question to say, and what if my work is not published and it's just from a previous assignment?
I was coming to that. It's more difficult to cite yourself in that way, because you must understand that the published work, it has been peer reviewed. Basically peer reviewed, I think most of you understand it. There are some of the scholars or academics who are knowledgeable in that field, who have read it. That's what you talk about peer-reviewed. So if it's not been published, definitely from my side, I don't think you can cite it, honestly. You can rather look at other people's work related to your assignment, and their work have been published and so on, then you can cite those people. Because you must understand, to cite an unpublished work, yes, we do it there and there. I've seen with the thesis and the dissertation to say this is unpublished, but it needs to have been peer-reviewed, because sometimes the thesis or the dissertation, it goes to external examiners. So there are people who have will look at it. So there's a credibility around that. Maybe that's how far I can go with trying to assist in that. But thanks for sharing with us and also elaborating.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure, man. Colleagues, from my side, I think I've done what I'm supposed to do. I need to rush to the next meeting at 11:30. So thank you, colleagues, for attending. And I hope that we have given you some few ideas. We have empowered you there and there, which you'll be able to use going forward. And thanks also for taking part, for your contribution, for engaging, and we really appreciate that.
The information, the ideas that comes from everybody were really interesting and informative. And I do hope that all the students that are here, they've heard and understood exactly what you are saying in your presentations. And then we also have an open floor for them to communicate with you in case somewhere, somehow, they feel that they need to be assisted. And then to the students, yes, we allow you to use all the platforms. You allow you to share your screens, but as you have seen that at some point it might disturb the process, the flow of the presenter. So yes, I think I'm happy about how the Dr. Kubeka has opened the floor to say you can as well unmute and talk to and share your ideas live to everybody. What I would like to say to you is that we are having more of the workshops that are coming. We'll be inviting you to the different ones. And of course, we will also try to get the Turnitin as Dr. Kubeka has explained it to you. And then immediately as we get the presenter, the person that is dealing with that directly, and then we will be able to invite you and take you through. So I'm happy that you are all here. And then we will send you the evaluation forms for our workshops to look into. And then from my side, I would like to say thank you all. And then I would like to ask the chair of the research committee for Gauteng to have a word if there is any. Ma'am Lindelwa.
Thank you, Musima, for the opportunity. I don't have much to say because you have actually summarized our sentiments. We are excited to have had Dr. Kubeka on our 2 workshops. And I think I speak for many when I say we have all gained a lot of useful information that is easy to apply with easy to relate to examples. And as my colleague has said, please watch the space. We'll definitely be getting in touch with all of you. And if you can also spread the word that our region, Gauteng region, has this service in terms of supporting students for their postgraduate journey. So feel free to get in touch with us, raise topics that you would like us to cover, and we will try and assist you as much as is possible from our side. Thank you, and all the best in your studies.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Lindelo. And then thank you, everyone. And thanks, Dr. Kubeka, as you say, you are rushing to the meeting. Colleagues and students, all of you, have a nice day. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you,
Thank you.
Memukola, and bye, all of you.
Bye.
Thanks very much, Mamakola.
Thank you very much, Intatelisiba.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. So, what do I exit? This one. This one.
Like a phone call. How would you drop a phone call?
That one.
Yes.
I go to chat. Also.
Mamakola.
Hello.
Mamakola, my apologies. I just wanted to ask, man. Is it possible to include lecturers of faculties or representative from faculties, or so that at least feedback that we give would be specific? Because I'm getting a sense, yeah, like what Dr. Kubeka was saying, he can't answer technical questions because he's not from that particular field or faculty. But if you would have someone from that faculty who would have an idea, I think he'd be able to then assist in terms of providing answers on the spot in relation to whatever would have been asked. Like, how viable is
that? I'm not promising anything, but we'll try to see that on the days of our workshops, if the lecturers are, whoever is available. Yeah, it's something that we need to look into and see if we can be able to manage that.
No, thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Okay, then. Okay, bye.
Makola?
Would you please stop the recording?
Yeah, it stopped, ma'am.
Okay.